Have you ever wondered what games you should keep or you should lose? Find out here at Purge Reviews. Have you ever wondered what games you should sell or you should use? Find out here at Purge Reviews. Find out on our top 10 list what games you cannot miss. Don't forget to subscribe to Purge Reviews.
Endeavor is an older game that caused quite a stir, I believe, when it was released because of its inclusion of slavery. Now, this has been a hot topic in gaming for quite some time about the inclusion of, let's say, the negative aspects of society, such as slavery. Endeavor has a pretty good solution to it that other games have had to take a different route. If you look at Five Tribes, you've seen the exclusion of where the original printing had slavery, and from then on it didn't have slavery. Endeavor actually incorporates a solution into it. You can include slavery in your plans, which will give you a temporary boost, but at some point in the game, it's almost assured that slavery will become outlawed. At that point, when slavery becomes outlawed, your slavery cards become a negative towards you and you lose any benefit from having those slave workers. This is a very good way to handle the slavery issue that would be included in the game historically. Now, I'm not one of those people that get up in arms about slavery being in a game, whether it's historically accurate or just an aspect of the game that's included. Now, in real life, I would be against that. Of course I would be. But in a game, sometimes, historically, it makes sense. And I'm okay with that. In this game, it is a boost. And I kind of like that push and pull of, well, do you want to have slavery because it has a negative effect? It almost plays that moral argument for you, which is really interesting to me that, the morality that you're playing, the feelings, you don't care because it's just a card you're turning over that happens to say slavery on it. Who cares? But in this aspect, the morality of doing it does have a negative effect later in the game to your victory point, so you need to weigh that out. Endeavor is actually a really neat little game about activating buildings and being able to improve. You're going to have 4 charts that you're going to be kind of going up those charts that will not only land you more victory points at certain spots, but in addition will give you abilities to do things in the game. Once again, it's one of those games where you want to do everything, but you can't do everything, so you kind of need to make a decision on what you're going to do. I believe the game rewards you for specializing. Now, I'm not really sure which track is more powerful or which one is better. Perhaps they're equally balanced because it's a very well-regarded game. But it is interesting that by specializing, you can score more victory points, theoretically, and do better in the game, perhaps. I think there's a lot of different ways to score in this game. I think it's really hard to jump into this game and have a set strategy. I think you need to play off what everybody else is doing, what buildings you're able to get, and kind of go down that path. Although, before you start the game, you can have some kind of idea of what you want to do. Endeavor led to many interesting decisions. I liked it quite a bit. It does abstract a lot of this through trade routes with just getting a token that pulls you up a chart. So it's almost like a mini spreadsheet that you're managing to do things on the board. I like that quite a bit. It works really well. Now, when I first got into gaming, this was a game that I had purchased and set on my shelf for many years and hadn't played. It felt a little bit more complicated to me than it does nowadays. I would actually put this game probably on a gateway to light aspect ratio for me. I feel like you could teach this game to a lot of people rather quickly. It's not very complicated. For our playing, we played with a full complement of 5 before, and it took the full 90 minutes, but I think with less people, you can get this over pretty quickly, and it wouldn't take as long. There's a set amount of rounds that you'll be playing, and the game does a really good job of it. Now, the components aren't what you would get nowadays. You're a lot of tiles, a lot of cardboard. No wooden cubes, no miniatures in this game, and I think it works fantastic. So I really like what you get. I think that the game plays wonderfully, and this is a game I'm going to highly recommend to people. Endeavor is a fantastic little game that I think most gamers will enjoy. If you've never played Endeavor, take a chance to stop and play this game. Check it out. To me, if you're wanting to put kind of a lighter Euro game into your collection, this is an instant buy. This is a game I really think you should check out. And don't let the slavery issue bother you in this game. Endeavor is a phenomenal game, and I look forward to many more plays of it. So here's the box for Endeavor. It looks really nice how it kind of looks like this satchel or suitcase that has maps and stuff inside of it. I really like the look of this box. Z-Man Games did a really good job. So you're going to get a rule book, which is actually fairly good. It has a lot of pictures and examples in it, so I'm happy with this rule book. Now these containers don't come with it. These are just ones I picked up at the dollar store. But you're going to get some cubes and some circular. Everything is made out of wood. And that is very nice. I keep them in these just to... What you're going to get in this container is just a bunch of little of these tiles that you will be using. Each one represents a different thing that you can get. In this case, a coin and the ability to build. And on the backs of them is the glory points, which is equivalent to victory points. So when they flip over after you get the goods, you have the victory point. And that's how those work. Here's the first player marker. You're going to get a number of building chits. These are just hard tiles and very nice and thick. Here are the cards in the game, and there's different ones for different locations. And these are the slave ones everybody went crazy about. These are the slave tiles, you know, because they have the chain and they say slavery on them. So these are like the little half-size or miniature-size cards with different icons on them, and they represent different locations on the board. There's no score track in the game. All the scoring is at the end, and they give you these 10 blocks just to kind of, they flip over their 50, just kind of easy way to count up your score as long as it's in denominations of 10 or 50. So they're okay. I prefer a scoring chart, but whatever. So this is what a player board would look like, and what you're basically just tracking how many of these you have, and you have the 4 charts. This is going to be the majority of the game, is pushing these charts up to get different things. This is where you put your buildings, and this is also, because you're going to have, there's 7 rounds. You're going to be filling up these, and you know when the game is coming at the end, and this is how many cards you can have, max, and then this is the one free governor space that you get. So this is what a player board looks like. Last but not least is the player board, and this thing is pretty big, so you can see the slavery cards will go here, and each location is going to have a spot for a deck of cards, and the shipping tracks. You can have these lines that connect places, that way you can get the bonus in the center. So it's kind of cool how it kind of looks like kind of the map, but it's like postcards of the world, if you will, in each of the different directions of it. So it's a very easy to read map. It might look like gobbledygook to you, but once I explain it to you, it's a very easy game to understand. The rules for Endeavor are very clear. Once you start playing it, we had very few questions. Everything kind of makes sense how they work. The icons that correspond to your player board all make sense. There wasn't a whole lot of looking at the rule book. You really have 2 things you can do on a turn. Activate a building if you have it available, and you can use one of your trade tokens if you happen to have one. You're not going to have those a lot. 80% of the game, 90% of the game is going to be activating the buildings. Very easy rule set, and I think it adds to the complexity of the game is more in your decision and what you want to do versus a rule set that kind of gets in your way. Great job. Before the game, I kind of want to explain the player board at first. So what you have here is you have these tracks, which you'll be using your markers to track. And as you move up this, so let's say I got all the way to 5, I can then build a level 3 building. If I get up to 8, I can build a level 4. Now these are victory points anytime you see the number with the icon. So if I was to get 9 points at the end of the game, I would actually go back to the next icon and score 7 points for it. And each of these 4 tracks act the same. Now this track, as you move up, will give you more workers each round. More of these little cylinders to place. On this round, this is how many cylinders you can take off buildings. So once you use the building, you're going to put a cylinder on it to mark it that you've used it and that worker is there. At the end of the round, however far up in this track, if you're here 2, if you're here 4, we will take those markers off. So some of your buildings may be blocked, so you can't use them each round. Now this is your hand limit, which you'll be putting down here. So here I'm allowed to have 3 cards at the end of a turn. At the end of the turn, everybody's done, and 1 slavery card. Here I can just have 5 cards, but I can't have any slavery cards. Well, a slavery card could count as one of my cards. This one can have 4 cards and a slavery card. So you're going to be moving these tracks up. You can't really do it all. These are worth victory points, as you can see up here. You specialize in getting up here is where the big points can come about, but you're going to need these to be able to do actions during the game, or have more cars, or have more workers, or build better buildings. So that's kind of how this works. This is where you place your buildings. There's 7 rounds to the game. So each time you place one, you can kind of keep track of how many turns are left in the game. The game moves quicker than you think it will. That's the player board. Let's take a look at the map. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to focus in on one area of the board here, the Caribbean. Now this area is unique in that anybody can go here at the start of the game, and you can utilize any of these spots that you want. But I want to concentrate on the Caribbean. This is how it would be set up. The whole board would be set up like this. But I kind of want to show the Caribbean just to give you an idea of how the game works. So what you're going to do on your turn is you can either activate a building that you have, one of these, or if you have one of these markers, you can utilize these. You will get these, you will earn these from the board. So this one, if you wanted to utilize it, would give you a ship action or draw a card action. So those are the 2 things you could do with this. You can do one of those 2, or you would activate your buildings. Now there's a couple of different buildings you're going to have. If it has a circle on here, you would place a cylinder and then take the action. In this case, draw a card. The workplace doesn't have one of those on it. This just bumps you up when you buy it to up on your brick chart track that I showed you before. So that's kind of how 2 buildings will be utilized. These are a one-time bonus, and these are every time you use it. This is how you take actions. You can't just take any action you want. So at the beginning of each round, you're going to build a building depending on what level you are. So if you're level 1, you can build a level 1. If you're level 2, you can build a level 2 or level 1 action. But let me kind of show you what some of the possible actions are doing. And this is a good microcosm of how the game works. So these are some of the actions. One thing you can do is you can ship. And if you want to ship, you just pick, and there's a whole bunch of tracks on the board, but once again, I'm just showing you the Caribbean. You just take one of your cylinders, and you take this off, and you have this. Okay? So if you wanted to ship on a different turn, and you had an available action to do so, you would take this. Now the majority of the ones you're going to see on the board are going to be like this. And this just moves you up on that track. And each track has these little circular tiles that represent them. So that's one thing you can do, is just ship. You can also occupy. So if this whole track is full and you have a person here, you can then occupy a position, which would be just to take your worker and put it at one of these little spots, these brown spots, and then you get this tile, which would move you up on that track and be worth a glory point at the end of the game. So that's kind of how that works. You can also attack. So attack takes 2 workers, and you have to have at least 2 workers. You would put 1 back in the supply, then you would take over someone else's spot. So on here, I don't have anybody else, but if somebody had been here, I would just take that spot over, but it's going to cost me this one too. Now the reason why you would do that a lot in the game is because you're kind of fighting for area control, but you also want to have, if you have the connector, then you get this bonus chip. And this is, if you can hold on to it in the game, it's worth another glory point. Then I would get this. This is a one-time bonus. If somebody took this spot, they don't take this from me, but they will take the glory point. So that's kind of how the attack will work. You also have the payment, if you have the ability to take a worker off your building. So if I had a worker here, and I was able to take a payment action, I could take this worker off, and then this thing would be available to be used again. So that's kind of more of a timely issue, which can be kind of neat. And the last thing you have is to draw a card. Now you're going to have a stack of cards here. They're always going to be, if you look here at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the governor. So in order to take this, I have to have at least 1 of my tokens in this area, which I do. I have more than that. I have 3 in this area right now. So I would take the top card, then I would get this bonus, and this would be in my card stock. So let's say I have a hand limit of 3, and I want to buy a new card. Let's say I want to buy this card. Well, if my limit is free, I could have this until the end of the turn, but in the turn, I would have to get rid of this. And sometimes that can make your tracks go back to go up in other areas, depending on what you want to do. Now, each pile of cards are going to have a governor card, and these are uber powerful cards that will allow you to get a whole bunch of stuff and normally glory points. And you have a free spot for a governor card, but can also take up a spot in your hand. And the way you get the governor card is by having the majority on this track, okay? So whoever has the majority on that track will get the governor card when the last card pops up and you want to take it. So that's how that works out. There are a few of these here that give you options where you can take a choice of what you want to do. But for the most part, you're going to be building up your buildings. And there's 5 levels of buildings, and they get more and more powerful. And that's how easy it is to play Endeavor. I mean, those are the options. So it's a lot of area control. It's picking up these, moving up on the tracks on your player board, and trying to score victory points in the best way possible. And by the end of the board, you'll be surprised that all the shipping is taken care of. It's kind of this slow build that kind of happens. And this is a fantastic game, Endeavor. Who should buy this game? I highly recommend Endeavor for most gamers. Even if you're not a Euro gamer, but you want to have one in your collection, this would be a great one to add to it. I also think that this could be a way to get people into those type of games. It's a very easy game. Most of the things you're doing it make sense, and nothing is overly complicated. You do have some things like area control in it that you're starting to learn, activating buildings, which people can learn from. A little bit of player interaction when you can attack somebody. It's very costly to attack somebody in this game, so you really need to think it through. But at times you need to do that to maximize your score. So you have a little bit of player interaction, which people like, that moment where you take their stuff. Even though they hate it when they're going through it, it is an interesting thing to go through. So you have some things in Euro games I think that people will like on the lighter side. I highly recommend Endeavor to most gamers. This is kind of be on my insta-buy list. This is something that you should probably go out and purchase if it looks interesting at all to you. Otherwise, go out of your way to try this one. If money's tight and you're on a really strict budget and you cannot buy games just to have, I think if you try this will be a game that you kind of want to have in your arsenal of board game collection. And I say that, one day I'll make a top 10 of like games I consider should be in your arsenal. Like, you should have these games in case somebody out of the ordinary wants to play with you. I feel like Endeavor is one of those games. So this would be a great game to have on hand. I'm definitely going to keep this, and I highly, highly recommend Endeavor.